Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. A fragment of Onakakushi, Chapter 1. In order for Keiichi to become a game piece that can lead everyone, there's something he has to learn about first. That piece that's very painful, pitiful, and sad. He has to learn about his friends, and he has to learn to not doubt them. He doesn't know the importance of trusting his friends. He doesn't know just yet. A slight mistrust grows into paranoia, and Keiichi Mabra is trapped within Rule X. At the end of Rule X, Keiichi leaves a sad note and dies. While it may be very bitter and very painful, it also puts him through the process of learning something very important. Hey, Hanyu, you didn't have to apologize. In the few days he left Hinamizawa to attend his relative's funeral, tragically, he experienced an outbreak. But I think this was necessary as his first step towards learning something important. The very first step towards smoking out Rule X and eventually defeating it. When this piece was all I had, I didn't even think of that though. Fragment of Watanagashi. This game piece reminds us that no matter what happens on this game board, everything is due to the curse or the Sonozaki family pulling someone's strings. No, to put it in my words, this is the piece that makes everyone aware of the existence of Rule Z. It's hard to notice with just this piece, but this is a complicated fragment where Shion Sonozaki, while trapped in Rule X, and mistaking it for Rule Y is hurled about, comes to notice the existence of Rule Z. But this is also the piece that teaches us the rules of the game board. By the way, the piece called Shion Sonozaki is a piece coming from the outside, from the game's point of view. She dislikes Satoko Hojo at first, but through this and another piece, she learns something important, challenges Rule X, and then grows to be a powerful piece to fight Rule Z. The most ridiculous part of this fragment is that it's hidden so cunningly, and doesn't seem that way at all with just a passing glance. Learn from your mistakes. Please become a powerful piece and lend me your strength to defeat my enemies. A fragment of Tatari Goroshi. This piece shows us the existence of the unreasonable Rule Z surrounding Satoko, and reveals the powerful adversary rule on the game board, Rule Y. Can Rules X, Y, and Z be seen now? The enemy we need to fight, the thing we need to learn. All are gathered and revealed here in this fragment. At this point, it's impossible to reach Rule Y. Fighting against Rule Z's effect on Satoko is the best that could be done. But in this piece, we make a mistake in our approach for fighting it. The outcome we gain through erroneous means is erroneous itself. Keiichi Mabra learned that through his own experiences. A tragedy doesn't possess the power to overcome tragedy. Violence doesn't possess the power to overcome violence. If they can grasp that, and all the pieces on this game board will learn the true way to fight. But Takano is too powerful. The shocking end of this piece doesn't allow us to learn it that easily. A fragment of Himatsubushi. This piece is the only one that's so distorted. That's because it's from long before June 1983. Therefore, the existence of this piece has no effect whatsoever in the game we're playing on this board. But is this really a useless piece? The identity of Rule Y has been completely exposed by now. With the backing of a mighty organization that is powerful enough to swallow up the small solidarity of individuals. I almost give up on this game because of its irrational power. That's why I'm thinking that maybe there's a piece hidden somewhere that's strong enough to fight against such a formidable enemy. Mamoru Akasaka works at the police headquarters in Tokyo, and might have the power to stand up to such a vast conspiracy. Can his power withstand even Rule Y? Just like Mamoru Keiichi defeated Rule Z, will he be able to defeat Rule Y so easily? We need everyone's strength. So Akasaka's strength is needed as well. The way that fragment thing moves around, I wonder if there'd be like a program that'd be available for anyone to make a game where you're just like, okay, obviously it's got a set of number of pictures fed into it and it just gets fragmented around. What if you could just have a program where you automatically just change the shape or the size, proportions of the crystal, and also you could just change whatever the pictures are in it? A fragment of Miyakashi. This is the piece of Shion Sonozaki who goes mad after being taken in by Rule X. With no room for sympathy, this is such a painful piece that one can only have pity. It distinctly identifies the keyhole of the padlock called Rule Z. Keiichi Mabra becomes a key himself to pry open this padlock, and as Shion Sonozaki wished for, he becomes a wind that clears out the stagnant air filling the village. This piece also teaches us an important lesson. Shion Sonozaki learns through this piece, and then becomes a strong ally for Satoko Hojo. And that way, maybe Satoko Hojo is a piece that represents the padlock for Rule Z. Unless she is saved, Rule Z can't be defeated. And when she is saved, that means Rule Z is defeated. This piece indicates only that, and that's the only thing Shion Sonozaki learned by gambling her life. But now, I think that it's very important. Every time I see Satoko and Shion argue about pumpkins, I think about that. I like the cube thing. A fragment of Sumi Horoboroshi. This game piece has a very important meaning for us because it showed us for the first time that it was possible to poke a hole in the fate of the June of 1983. To start from the conclusion, everything gets taken in by Rule Y at the end, and all of our effort is wasted. But we're challenging the great law that governs this game board, Rule X, head on. We're using everything we've learned so far from the other fragments, which prove we can defeat it. We grow by learning. In a game with no hope of winning, we can discover a slight chance of victory. This piece taught us that. With this game piece, Rule X was almost completely defeated. Keiichi Maber and other friends won't be led astray by something as pathetic as the Hinamizawa syndrome, and dance and tragedy any longer. It has also taught us that rules aren't indestructible and are possible to overcome. In other words, it has given us, the ones who are on the outside of the game board, hope. It's an important fragment that serves as our turning point and the trigger for everything else. A fragment of Higurashi. The game piece that uncovers the invisible rule Y that has been pulling the strings from the beginning. Because the impression of that is so strong, it's easy to forget about something very important. We can't forget that this piece also shows the path toward destroying Rule Z. While Rika Furude lamented Rule Z as impossible to defeat, it was hardly a match for Keiichi Maber and the others once they learned everything they needed to. They knew the correct way to fight and fought according to the rules of the game board. As a result, we win, and that fact is more valuable than anything for us. Keiichi Maber taught me a lesson. There is no need to subject ourselves to any fate. The will to believe can defeat anything. The fate that I was always subjected to was created by Mio Takano's own conviction, so what he says is correct. To defeat her conviction, we need a stronger conviction of our own. A strong will can be pierced only by another strong will. We defeated rules X and Z, and then challenged the final rule, Rule Y. But we needed more pieces. Each piece fought at its best, with the strength of our enemy's pieces. Led by Mio Takano, were just too powerful. She didn't even give us mercy. She squished us completely, and made us restart the game all over again. Although we lost, we didn't give up the resolve in our hearts, because we finally found the true culprit, and also found a clue for how to fight against her. We can't win with the pieces we have now. We don't have a powerful enough conviction, or a strong enough will, but Hanyu and I will keep trying. We'll roll our die repeatedly, look for the greatest result, collect pieces, and try again. With a will stronger than Takano. Didn't you think of giving up several times before you got to this point? But you made it because you believed in me and followed me here. We're almost there. We can do it. Let's create the last piece. It will be the ultimate piece. And we won't need anything else. The very last piece of all. Come on, let's collect the pieces. Let's collect miracles. Please give your hopes, desires, and dreams to me. A fragment of Matsuribayashi. After collecting miracles from all 7 fragments, I finally got a hold of this one. This fragment holds our final fate. But before we take a peek, please wait for just a little bit. The fate that's inside will be decided the moment we take a peek. Have I told you about the story of the cat in the box? Is the cat in the box alive or dead? If you open the box, you'll know. But you won't know until you open it. It could be alive, and it could be dead. In other words, before you open the box, the living cat and the dead cat simultaneously coexist. And the moment you open the box and find out the truth, the incorrect answer disappears. The inside of this fragment is the same principle. The future we desire and the future Takano desires simultaneously coexist. They are opposing and denying each other. Once we take a peek, one of those futures will disappear. If we have enough pieces, we can take a look inside this fragment. But we've only had the same pieces lined up the same way on the game board. And the game under the same condition was Takano's complete victory. We've already tried that in Higurashi fragment. We need more pieces. We need the help of a piece that's powerful enough to defeat Rule Y. Until I get a hold of that piece, it's too scary to take a peek inside the fragment. But how do I get such a piece? It's a piece I've never gotten a hold of before. To obtain it, I need to look just one more time. I need one more miracle to obtain that piece. Leftover fragments. Do you need the final miracle? What is this? I'd never noticed this tiny little fragment. Sometimes a fragment gets cracked and it breaks. Just like how the fate we believe in cracks sometimes. A damaged fate is no longer the same fate it was. Then which fate does this piece belong to? I picked up the tiny fragment and tried to match with the fragments I have in my hand. And the last fragment I picked up was the Matsuribayashi fragment. This fragment was distorted from the beginning. And look. See? This tiny piece fits perfectly. With this tiny fragment, how will the world change? Okay, quick question. Obviously, we're going to click on the Matsuribayashi fragment and we're going to finish the story. But had I not clicked on this, or had I fucked up in all the click on everything else and cracked anything else, and this wouldn't show up, would the story be different that we're going to be getting? I had to sneeze. What kind of miracle will occur? The whole world warped. Since I put the broken piece back where it belonged, the distortion's centered on the crack. But that doesn't mean I can't take a peek inside. It's already past 1985. It's time, long after Rika Frude and her friends' stories tragically ended in June 1983. Beep, zik. With some mild interference, an order crackled through their headsets. All units, the chief has a message for all of you, so listen up. Good work, everyone. The local police have given us 15 minutes to wrap this up, but I'm only giving you a few seconds. Don't let a single person escape. The main target is a diplomat. Don't let him suspect you're a cop. Just grab him. But make sure you leave no injuries. It'll lead to problems if you do. They're dirtbags who hide under diplomatic immunity to deal with the local gangsters. They launder money from the drug dealing and force people into the sex trade to pay off their high-interest debts. According to the local embassy, some of the victims are younger than teenagers. Shitbags. Normally, this would be a simple case. What with the perpetrators being gangsters. But when the police found out that a foreign diplomat was involved, things got much more complicated all of a sudden. Diplomats have diplomatic immunity, so the police can't arrest them. But they knew he was an important figure in the whole scheme, and there was no doubt that he was the middleman between the foreign criminals organization and the Japanese gangsters. They couldn't let him escape. It'd be easy to deport him, but that wouldn't solve anything. The police had asked the embassy for assistance, but they denied the request, and the case was put on a standstill at that point. That's when they found out the organization was going to be selling the Self-Defense Forces classified radar and missile technology secrets. The Public Safety Division then had to move on the premise to protect the classified government information. And today was the day the operation was set to go. 2 men at the front of the stairs, 2 men at the underground entrance, 4 men at the back door. All suspects are believed to be armed. 2 more than usual, huh? It'll only take 2 seconds more for him. He never shows anyone mercy. Can you hear, Akasaka? You're on point. Be careful. Okay, let's move. This is Akasaka. I copy. Let's go. A man suddenly appeared around the corner. Downtown, it was Akasaka. He displayed none of the naivete that he did when he first met Rika. When he got to the entrance of the underground club, a bouncer with a heavy foreign accent stopped him. "This place. Members only. Do you have membership card?" Akasaka pulled out a card after being asked. It was a card that was very difficult to forge, so they could only get one. As the man on point, he was the one to receive it. The bouncer let Akasaka in after confirming he had a membership card. Akasaka-san passed the bouncer at the entrance. He's going down the stairs. "Come on, Akasaka." At the bottom of the staircase, there was an overly decorated door like the ones you'd see at a high-class club. The venomous glow of the cocktail lights lit it up, silently warning everyone it was an entrance to a den of evil. "Welcome. May I see your membership card?" The guard at the entrance took the membership card and put it through the card reader on the wall. Beep! An error sound. Slight perspiration could be seen on Akasaka's forehead. The guard swiped the card a couple more times more. Beep! Beep! Akasaka-san is having a problem. Did they change the system? If Akasaka's encountering trouble, we'll change plans. Secure his safety pronto. The expression on the guard with him steadily grew dour. His right hand reached inside of his jacket, probably fingering his gun. Ding! The buzzer suddenly rang with a delightful tone, and the card reader flashed a green light. Immediately after that, the lock on the door opened up. "Thank you for waiting. Please head on inside." The guard pulled his hand out of his jacket and opened up the heavy door. Loud music and flashing colorful lights spilled out from the inside. From within that, a well-dressed guard appeared to welcome Akasaka. At this moment, his first mission was accomplished. Having acted as the go signal for the remaining units, Akasaka was also in the dangerous position of being in enemy territory all by himself. The door was the biggest obstacle for their ambush. The door locked automatically, so whenever it was closed, it was also sealed that way. It was a solid door, nearly impossible to open from the outside. Somebody who had to not only open that door, but to keep it open for several seconds in order for the raid to begin. Akasaka was the only one who could do that. "This is Akasaka, entrance secured." "Go, go, go!" The complex on the other side of the club was getting a new tenant, and there were 2 trucks parked in front of the building. But of course that was just a disguise. The door to one of those trucks opened, and several dozen plainclothes investigators jumped out. The same thing was happening at the back door too. The ground-level guards noticed this and began to draw their guns, but were taken down immediately by nearby investigators who had been pretending to be innocent bystanders. Several dozen investigators quietly went down to the underground stairs. These narrow underground stairs were another obstacle to their operation. Everything would end up on the security camera. Their raid would become known within a few seconds. For that matter, a push on the security button would make it impossible for the lock to be opened from the outside. That's why they had to secure the door before the ambush. The guards on both sides of Akasaka noticed the loud footsteps coming down the stairs. The well-dressed guard also realized that something was wrong. The 3 guards shifted their attention from Akasaka to the stairs behind him, and as he sensed the attention shift, Akasaka took a quick, deep breath and then stopped breathing entirely. The 2 guards standing beside him suddenly rose into the air in strange positions. Akasaka determined his position relative to the 2 guards next to him, so he didn't need to check with his eyes, but even so, his fists had been driven into their faces with such precise accuracy. His moves were well-trained ones and showed no mercy against evil. They were as destructive as armor-piercing ammunition. And furthermore, Akasaka had retracted his arms at the same speed he struck. Everything looked so strange in the flashing lights. The man who witnessed all this probably couldn't figure out what had just happened. The 2 guards were up in the air, in strange positions, and the man who had been standing in front of them was now crouching low, and that frozen moment shattered. The well-dressed guard was smashed into the ceiling, and shortly afterward came crashing down onto the floor. Later on, while slurping liquid food, he would desperately try to remember whether it was a fist or a leg that broke his jaw. He would probably never quite recall it. Rather luckily, the way his body fell blocked the door, so Akasaka didn't have to hold it open any longer. "This is Akasaka. I'm going in. But wait! Wait for your backup! Akasaka!" The room was filled with loud music, but everyone had already noticed the brouhaha at the entrance. I don't know if I pronounced that right. "Everyone, get down. Everyone, get down!" As soon as Akasa bellowed his warning, screams filled the club. Most people immediately hit the floor as if trying to proclaim their innocence, but all the guards reacted quickly to Akasa. In the midst of all this, there were a few people who were trying to make their escape through the back alongside the several guards. Akasa restarted his breathing once, and then stopped it again, and then ran after them like a wolf. He jumped up onto the table, smashing expensive bottles of alcohol and scattering glasses with ice cubes made from the icebergs of the Arctic. A foreign bodyguard whose previous profession must have been a professional boxer thoughtlessly stood in front of Akasa. With a heavy accent, he tried to taunt his opponent, but Akasa couldn't have cared less about that. The only display that man was able to put on for him was that he was able to block Akasa's attack. But it wasn't even an effective guard. The power of Akasa's punches were so incredible that they simply broke the man's bones in his attempt to block them. The man's arm warped in a strange way, and the moment after, agony showed on his face. Akasa's left arm ground into it. Akasa, you see, is right-handed. That man should have considered himself grateful that he was able to get away with a mere orbital fracture. Thinking that this was his chance, another man attempted to tackle Akasa-san from behind. He assumed that no matter how strong a man was, he'd go down quickly when attacked from behind. He also assumed that as Akasa was concentrating in front of him, he wouldn't be expecting an attack from behind to begin with. But that would only be true if Akasa was just concentrating on his front. Indeed, the attacker was very wrong, for Akasa was no longer even thinking about the man in front before him. Akasa knew exactly when and what was about to happen. The experience he has built up to this day taught him that. His body, more than his mind, remembered the timing for when menaces to society like these would make their move from behind him. Akasa's attack continued fluidly from the left arm punch that he struck against the ex-boxer. His left arm retracted, and at the same time, he arced his left leg around beautifully as it crashed into the man approaching him from behind. A dull sound signified that his nose had been broken, but Akasa already knew that. Akasa continued his motion and directed a decisive right blow to the side of his assailant's head. The man slammed into the wall and bounced off of it, rolling on the floor. Akasa took another breath. Under the glare of the dazzling club lights, the guards realized that they were up against a demon. Yes, they realized that there was no way to take him down. The guards were being paid to deal with humans. Fighting demons just wasn't in their job description. At that moment, backup finally arrived. Maybe finally isn't a suitable word. Everything that happened did so over a matter of seconds. The time it took for Akasa to take down those 5 guards was a span of merely 2 breaths. Put your hands above your head and get down on the floor. If you resist, we will open fire. Thanks to Akasa's furious actions, the flow of events was already set. Akasa's intimidating first strike shattered the gang leader's will to run. They were all down on the floor, but one of them began smiling. You shouldn't touch me. It'll lead to an international incident. Akasa grabbed him by the collar and threw him against the concrete wall. Aren't you a policeman? I have diplomatic immunity. I am a diplomat. Good for you. So how much did you get paid, huh? This will be an international incident. I will be calling the embassy. With a dragon leg roar, Akasa's right fist pounded the wall right next to the diplomat's head. Immediately after that, his left fist pounded the wall on the other side of that head, and soon enough, Akasa had pounded the wall 7 times, each just a sliver away from the diplomat. His fists were easily powerful enough to crush the man's head. The diplomat crumbled to the floor. Ha! This is Akasa. Target secured. Further investigations discovered a secret getaway route that even public safety didn't know about. Dozens of Soviet military-grade machine guns were found, and if Akasa hadn't stopped them there in the club, they would have escaped, or even worse, the operation might have ended with brutal death toll on both sides. All thanks to how well Akasa executed his duty, the operation was completed without a single shot fired. Come on, hurry. The local police will be here soon. Put them on the truck. Since the foreign diplomat was involved, they had to make sure it didn't look as though the whole operation was carried out by the police. Instead, it was made to look like a simple gang war. They would dump the useless gang members and hand over the target to the police. Of course, before handing him over, they'd make sure he spilled everything he knew.
That diplomatic pig would be used as a negotiation device by another part of public safety. They found plenty of evidence that said pig was tied to an underground criminal organization. Not wanting a persona non grata on their hands, the embassy would likely cut all ties with him. The rest would be the business of our other departments. Public safety's job was to take care of things regular police couldn't deal with. Akasaka, are you okay? Come in, Akasaka. This is Akasaka. We're on our way. You've done it again. Report to the chief to get reamed out later. Akasaka-san, you sure are a demon. 5 men within mere seconds? That's not even karate anymore. Your fists should be recategorized as lethal weapons. It sure was lucky that none of them drew their guns, though. Knowing how brutal Akasaka-san is, he could have turned them into honeycombs. Shut up. Don't make me sound like an assassin. I show no mercy against evil, that's all. The pigs he had just caught were no average criminals. They had committed so many unforgivable sins. The strength behind of Akasaka's fists was proportional to those sins. The heavier their sins, the more powerful his blows would be. Come on, round them up. Akasaka, make them hurry. By the way, since all this stuff is hypothetically via Hanyu's perspective, does this mean 3 years after Rika and everyone else dies in the village, Hanyu's just like walking around following who she thinks most interesting, and so she's just following Akasaka? So this means during this whole fight, you know, the small purple-haired goddess that's like several thousand years old is just like walking behind him as a little ghost that's stalking him. The local police will get here quickly. This is Akasaka. Understood. Didn't you guys hear? Hurry up. Roger. Command. We have 5 injured here. Please have meds ready. There wasn't any trace left of Akasaka's old naivete. He had grown to be the vigilant ace of his department. Akasaka was training inside a dark dojo, filled with the smell of sweat and mold. The dojo was located in the middle of downtown. In a small building, it wasn't that big, and they weren't that well equipped either. Again, do you guys say either or either? It certainly doesn't look like a dojo where a person as skilled as Akasaka would train. There were only 3 or 4 students there, including Akasaka, but this was the dojo he picked. To Akasaka, karate was certainly a weapon for crushing his enemies, but now he was seeking something further from it. To achieve his goal, a dojo with many young students having actual physical lessons wouldn't work. He had gone to so many different dojos, and this was the one he finally settled on. Every time Akasaka punched a sandbag, the heavy thud of his punch and the clang of the sandbag's chain would echo. He wasn't just punching blindly. He thought first, developed those thoughts, and then punch. It was more of a deep and low vibration than a proper sound. Drops of sweat scattered and the dust welled up in the air. It was a perfect blow, embodying the concept of one strike, one kill. But he wasn't satisfied. He closed his eyes, controlled his breathing as if trying to hear the cry of the cicadas. Then he punched again. From a beginner's perspective, it looked like he was taking breaks between each. The other students, training on their own, would glance over and sense a fearsome respect at his focused blows. I heard Akasaka-san works at the police department. Really? If someone like him is a police officer, I don't want to do anything bad. Still, his concentration sure is amazing. He never gets tired. I kind of feel like the way he's punching the sandbag reminds me of Netero from Hunter x Hunter. On his days off, Akasaka came to the dojo in the early morning. And he silently trained all day. His training was no longer physical, but mental. The other students were already aware that his continuous concentration was the secret of his strength. However, that was easier said than done. As long as a person lives, they are bound by countless ties and idle thoughts. For a person to submit all his will into such singular focus is more like trying to attain enlightenment than something in the realm of martial arts. Wasn't there an old book and philosophy written by Miyamoto Musashi hundreds of years ago? That same idea? Man has tried many different methods to achieve such enlightenment. And again, also this, reminds me of Netero in the terms of the focus on the direction he took his training. Both in every way. And what we've learned is that there is no one way to reach it. And a path one takes can reach it if mastered. Karate is what Akasaka chose. The rumors say that his wife is dead. Supposedly he does karate to forget about that. Really? Then that's different from what I heard. I heard he couldn't save a girl on the job, leading him to realize his weakness or something like that. Hey, I can hear you. Quit talking about other people and train. Yes, sir. There was a small beeping noise. Somebody's watch was letting them know it was noon. Akasaka-san, we're going to get some lunch. Can we get you something too? Sure. I don't care what you get. Thanks. Akasaka was more pleased to be alone in the dojo than to have anyone bring him lunch. When they left, silence filled the building. Shit. My focus dissipated because they were talking about me. But if that happened because of that bit of a small talk, that meant he had much more training to do. He had to train much harder if he wanted to achieve enlightenment. He focused again and started to punch the sandbag, but the sound was a lot lighter than before, and obviously the strength in his fist was no longer there. Realizing that he needed to take a break, Akasaka pulled out a towel from his bag and sat down. The sound of cicadas soaked into his body. The windows were open, but there was no breeze coming in. Still, he could feel the cool air, if just a little. Just as they said, the reason Akasaka started karate was because of Yuki's death. Of course, losing against the suspect in the kidnapping incident was one of the reasons too. But more than that, the pain from Yuki's death was what made him start. Yuki fell down the stairs at the hospital and died while he was on a business trip in Shishibone. He couldn't get rid of that depression, so he started learning karate. But in June 1983, when the great Hinamizawa disaster occurred, he realized something very important. A girl had predicted Yuki's death, and in return she wanted him to help her. Yuki's death was an accident. He could have told himself that there was nothing he could have done. But as for the girl, Rika, Furude's death was different. She knew about her own death 5 years prior. When the disaster occurred, he remembered Oishi and called him to make sure he was okay, then found out about everything. When he was caught up, he fell into despair. Rika Furude was the turning point in his life. If he had believed what she predicted and did something about it, maybe Yuki wouldn't have had to fall down the stairs. He took the oath to serve the public as a police officer, yet he didn't even notice the plea for help from a little girl. He shoved aside a conspiracy surrounding her until it was too late. He had 5 years to do something about it, but he didn't do anything, and she died. Visiting Hinamizawa for the kidnapping case of the minister's grandson was definitely the turning point in his life. If he had only listened to what the girl said, Yuki would have never died, and he could have been there to help Rika Furude. Those two things continued to haunt him. The investigation into the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa that he heard about from Oishi was put on indefinite hiatus because of the disaster, but it was apparent to both of them that there was some conspiracy behind it all. To challenge such things, he needed all the strength and experience that he could muster. He was devoting himself to gain such strength, but it was too late. Everything had already ended. While he was stuck in this dilemma, the dojo instructor admonished him. There was nothing one can do about what's already done. So in that case, the only thing he can do is train diligently, so that if the same thing is to happen again, he will be able to save a person in need. It's all too late. Everything is already over. Yuki died in an accident. Hinamizawa Hinamizawa was destroyed in the gas disaster, and Rika-chan was murdered as her intestines were ripped out while she was alive. Shit! I was too obsessed with Yuki's death and couldn't hear the girl's pleas for help. No, if I had listened to her, I could have prevented Yuki's accident too. Damn it! Damn it! Shit! As Akasaka clutched his hair and looked up, he noticed a small shrine overhead that protected the dojo. Akasaka respected both Shinto and Buddhism, but he had never thought of praying to gods in times of despair. But for the first time, he felt like praying for help. If it was something he was capable of doing himself, he would never even consider praying. But as it was something he couldn't resolve on his own, he prayed. It was a very selfish wish. If his wish were to come true, everyone in the whole world would wish for the same thing. Please, please. Give me another chance to go back to that time. I swear that this time I will save the both of them. At that moment, Akasaka's body suddenly felt very light. No, it was more like he was losing balance, as if he was fainting. Perhaps it was because he shouted so loudly after training, and his brain was lacking in oxygen, but he couldn't take his eyes off the shrine. Thank you, Akasaka. We needed your thoughts. Was this a hallucination? Akasaka felt like a stranger was talking to him. We must wish for a miracle, and you must wish for a miracle too. Otherwise, a miracle will never occur. Unless everyone wishes for a miracle, it won't occur. Unless both sides reach out, their hands won't meet in the middle. He didn't know what she was trying to say, but somehow he felt like he couldn't miss a single word of it. He felt like it was something very, very important. Akasaka, if you wish for it, I'll grant you this miracle, and it'll be a miracle for us too. Joining these broken fragments will give us the chance to create an even greater fragment. Your resolve on its own may greatly influence everyone's fates and intentions. Can you turn back time to that day? No, I can't do that. The only thing I do is to let you notice that things you can't learn from one fragment, you can learn from others. So all you have to do is return to this broken fragment to where it belongs. That's a big miracle itself, although you probably won't even notice it. Thank you, Akasaka. Thank you. For remembering me. I don't even know how much time I've spent asking you for help, but finally, it reached you. So, I'll say it one more time. Please help me. No, please help us. It was long. It really was long. Are you okay? Is your spirit still alive? Do we have all the pieces we want lined up on the game board? Is this everything we have that can go up against Takano and her minions in the game of the fate of June 1983? Hold on one second. I do feel like the story will be different if we hadn't clicked on that one piece. That's why I'm keeping those one saves a bit separated. That way we can easily come back to it if we want to see an alternate version. I think maybe we have everything. And last but not least, Hanyu. It's you. The time you have left to be a piece is limited. But that doesn't mean you can't show up in the game. Shall we begin? I put in hundreds of years just for this moment. It's all coming together, completed the puzzle. Someone once suggested that believing is like placing a bet with coins of hope. In other words, believing means taking a risk. You gain something if you win, but you lose something if you fail or fall. As with any gamble, we try to make sure we win and then bet the coin. But as with any gamble, there's no guarantee of victory. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And that's how you increase the number of coins you have. But if you keep losing, you don't want to continue gambling. It's then that you realize that if you don't gamble, you don't have to lose anything. Not gambling on anything is the same as not believing anything. Not believing anything is the same as not involving yourself in anything. And not involving yourself in anything is the same as not existing. Therefore, she didn't exist. The one coin she had in her heart was the last coin. If she lost it, she'd disappear. That was why she was hesitating to make a bet. She had been running, trying not to get involved with any type of match because she was afraid of betting it by accident. But just like in a game of poker, she could lose her coin by folding. She tried not to lose her last coin, but that meant she was going to lose it eventually anyway. There was something she didn't know. Actually, I didn't know it at the time either. The more coins bet into the pool, the higher our chances of winning this game. In other words, the more frightened we are, the more we will keep losing the game before us. It's just like carrying a portable shrine. It's impossible to carry such a heavy thing by oneself, but when people put their strength together, they can lift it easily. That's a clear borderline between too heavy to lift and easily lifted. It's just like how the balance on a scale tips with just a little weight. The big, heavy shrine before us couldn't be lifted. Everyone tried their hardest to raise it, but couldn't. I didn't help because I was sure it couldn't budge. I don't participate in games I know I can't win. So, I didn't bet my coin. But, that was wrong of me. Maybe the portal shrine could have been lifted if I joined. For the longest time, I had been pretending to be a bystander. I always thought I was there just to find out if my coin was worth betting or not. But that was wrong. I'm not just an onlooker. Nor should I be a bystander. I should have participated. The game I've been facing doesn't look like a game I can win. It doesn't look like a game that's worth betting on. But by betting on it, or by participating in it, or by believing in it, the outcome might change. To gamble on something is the same as to believe in something. To believe in something is the same as to be involved in something. To be involved in something is the same as to exist. Therefore, she existed. Okay, everyone, homeroom is starting. No more chit-chatting. Class rep, go ahead. All rise. Bow. Good morning. Sit down. Rattle, rattle, rattle. It's an ordinary morning. The only difference is that it started a little later than usual. Chie-sensei normally arrives in the classroom right away, but she's a little late today. Why was she late for homeroom? The rumors were already stirring about the classroom before she arrived. Chie-sensei gave a cue, and a girl peeked in the room timidly. Ow, ow, ow! This is a new student, Hanyu Furude-san. She's going to be joining us starting today. Wow! The voices of welcome, delight, and surprise all mixed together and filled the classroom. Furude? Is she related to Rika-chan?
Yes, she is. She's my distant relative.
Why does this remind me of an episode of South Park?
My, that's quite a surprise, even to me. I was uninformed that Rika had relatives.
Hey, this old man didn't know either.
Either?
Well, the three families are rather complicated. I wouldn't be surprised if I had distant relatives myself.
But she sure does look related to Rika-chan. Ow, what a cutie. Cutie. Ow, ow,
ow. All my classmates had gotten excited. The new girl looked rather intimidated by it all. Rika-chan is rather carefree, but this Hanyu seems like the complete opposite. She's more like a shy woodland animal. The exact type that Rena loves. Look, see, Rena is ready to swallow her whole. Okay, Hanyu-san, please introduce yourself. Settle down, everyone. Go ahead, Hanyu-san. Chie-sensei left the podium and encouraged Hanyu to take over. The even greater pressure of the silence left her standing there timidly for a little bit. Well, that's understandable. It's very nerve-wracking to watch, though.
I'm Hanyu Furude. I'm Rika's relative. Meep. She's my relative. Please be nice to her.
Rika-chan can tell that she's too nervous to introduce herself. She's right to break the silence. Pressuring her like that isn't fair. Which is why I decided to make it more lively.
You're called Furude, just like Rika-chan, huh? Now we have two Furudes in this class.
Then how about we call her Hanyu-san? And if we call her Furude-san, Rika might think we're addressing her, don't you think? We generally call each other by our first names here. She's one of us starting today, so we should call her by her first name too. Okay, it's decided. We'll call you Hanyu. I'm Mion Sonozaki, the class president. Call me Mion, okay? Oh, I am Satoko Hojo. Very pleased to meet you, Hanyu-san.
I'm Daiki Tomita. My parents run a tofu shop. Please come by anytime.
I am Saoguro Okamura. Please ask me if you don't know anything.
Hello. Let's be friends, okay? What grade are you in?
Our classmates fell over each other to introduce themselves. Everyone tried to get her to remember their names so they could be friends. A friendly atmosphere swelled in the room. I have only just transferred recently myself, but this is exactly how it was on my first day too. I remember how nervous I was and how much I appreciated this as a result. I now I know more than anyone how nerve-wracking it is to be a new student. I should look after her. I agree. We'll have to help her blend into the class quickly. Right. You were a new student last year, huh? Were you nervous on your first day, too?
Yep.
But Mi-chan and the others were so nice to me that I got used to the class pretty quickly. Well, yeah. To welcome a newcomer to the village is one of the 3 families' important new village duties. You only mention the 3 families when it suits your purposes, but it's true that you all helped me get used to such a different environment. In that case, doesn't that mean it's your turn to look after her, Kei-chan? Yeah, I thought so too. Rena was a new student, but she looked after me when I got here. So it's my turn to look after the next new student. A new student always dramatically changes the atmosphere of a class. Even my attitude has changed. We decided to gather around Hanyu during lunch break. Okay, remember, you can only ask Hanyu 1 question each, okay? Why don't we ask her some personal questions so we get to know her better? Let's see, who will be the first to go? You're up, Okamura. What is your favorite food?
I like sweets. My favorite kind are ice cream puffs.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love cream puffs too. There's a very good sweets shop in Okonomiya. I'll take you there sometime. Okay, boys, did you all hear that? If you want Hanyu to like you, get her some cream puffs, okay? Not the cheap ones, though. Get her something expensive. Let's see who's next. If there's no one else, I'll ask what color her underwear is today.
Ow, 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 ow.
Everyone kept asking Hanyu questions, and she looked all panicky again. I guess this is like a traditional ceremony for a new student. I remember this is exactly how my first day went. Mion and Satoko seem amused, so it must be the same for them too. I noticed Rena watching the scene before her with a distant look in her eyes. She's probably remembering her first day too. Are you recalling what it was like?
Yeah.
Were you thinking about something else? You aren't thinking about taking Hanyu home, are you?
How? No way! I'm not thinking that since Hanyu-chan likes cream puffs, and since I have good cream puffs at home, that she should come over or anything like that. How? I'm taking her home with me.
If she doesn't come to school tomorrow, it'll be your fault, Rena.
How? That's mean.
As we watched Hanyu and our classmates have fun, Rena and I laughed together.
Hey, Kiichi-kun. This sure is great, huh?
Yes, it is. It's great to meet a new classmate.
No, not that. I mean, I think I've seen her a few times before.
Hanyu? Maybe you saw her when she and her family came to look at the area before they moved here. You sure have a good memory, Rena.
No, it's not like that. Hanyu-chan has been here for a long time. She's been right beside us all the while watching us play together. For ages now.
Huh?
Is it just me? Didn't you notice, Kiichi-kun? No, I haven't seen her before. So are you saying that you've met her before, Rena? From what I can see, this is the first time Mion and Satoko have met Hanyu. If she's been that close to us like Rena said, it's impossible that none of us would remember her. Are you sure? Besides, Hanyu is a transfer student. She couldn't have been here in this village that often. Do you think so? I swear I've seen her pretty often.
It's your imagination. Even Hanyu just said that she was living in a far away before she moved here.
But I've seen her before. How?
Rena looked like she was trying to remember more.
It's probably one of those deja vu experiences. Although it is the first time you see something, it feels like you've seen it before. There's also things called a deja vu, whereas a deja vu is where you do something that you don't think you've done before, but you have the feeling like you must have done it 100 times already. Like you feel like you're doing something for the first time, but you feel like you've done it before, possibly even many times before. Whereas deja vu is the inverse of that. It's where you're doing something that you've done many times, but you feel like it's the first time you've ever done it. Oh well, just forget about it. She's here now, right? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. She always seemed so eager to join us, so I'm glad that she's one of us now. Ha ha ha. Rena smiled with tears in her eyes. When I looked over at her, Rika-chan was wearing the same expression. It made no sense to me why those two looked that way, but as soon as Satoko came over and pulled a prank on me, I forgot all about it. See you later! These are the words that signal the best time of the school day. As soon as the last period ended, my classmates ran out of the room. Hanyu was popular all day today. She's Rika-chan's age, so all the lower grade students gathered around her. Older students like me and Mion didn't have a chance to get close to her. Well, I'm sure they'd rather have a new student who's their age than a scary-looking older guy. Ha 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 ha, that's right, you looked so scary at first, Kiichi-kun. It was probably because you were nervous. Hey, that's mean! I was just trying to be friendly so I could get along with the class. You are far from friendly. You slapped me upside the head on your first day, Kiichi-san. Don't you recall? That's because how I was treated on my very first day. There was a thumbtack on the seat of my chair and even a frog in my desk. We heard there was a new student in the teacher's office, so we went to go take a peek. We saw you there and you looked so nervous that Satoko must have thought she had to do something to help you relax. Oh ho 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 ho. As your elder, I was being considerate, you see. Tisk, that's impossible. Although that blackboard eraser trap sure did help to ease my tension. But Satoko will be so pleased with herself if I tell her that, so I'll never admit it. Hanyu-chan must have gone home with everyone else. I'm sure she's still popular even after school. Haha. Still, your first day at a new school is always really exhausting. I'm sure she'll sleep very well tonight. I'm quite sure too. Oh ho 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 ho. Okay everyone, it's been a while since I've been busy with work. Quite a bit lately. It's time for a club meeting! I've been waiting for this. It's been so long that I've gotten rusty. Meep. 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 I've been bored because I haven't rubbed a loser's head in a while. How? I won't lose. I won't be holding back just because it's been a while. Heh heh heh.
You sure have pent-up frustrations, huh? Great, that makes things even more interesting. Everyone's motivated, huh? You better watch out, I'm in top form today, Mion. You're going to wish you went to work instead. Mion's had to work quite a bit lately because her uncle's shop is short on staff, so we haven't done any club activities for a long while. For us, club activities are the main reason we come to school. In a way, we live for these few hours after school. If there are no club activities, there's no point in coming here at all. So it only makes sense for us to be excited about getting to have a meeting again. I guess none of us will be satisfied with an ordinary game. Hehehe, what should we play? Mion looked into the club locker. I'm always curious about what's in that locker and how much of it is there. How much of it there is. I swear there's more in there than it can realistically hold. Just then we heard the door open. Oh! Hanyu-chan? Ow. Hello? What are you doing here? Did you forget something? I thought she had already gone home. Did she forget her lunchbox or something? It's not that big a deal to forget a textbook, but you can't forget a lunchbox. Ow. Hanyu, what is it? Are you looking for something? Hanyu looked at us apologetically. What is it? Are we in the way? She kept staring at us timidly. Are we sitting in Hanyu's seat? No, that's not it. What is it, Hanyu-chan? Can we help you? Can we? Ow, ow, ow. Ren had talked to her, but there was no communication to be had, almost like trying to have a conversation with a stray cat. What is this? Hanyu was fixated on something. I followed her gaze and found Rika-chan. Rika's like, use your words, Hanyu. Hanyu's apologetic gaze was directed at Rika-chan. Meep. Ow, ow, ow. I won't say anything. If you want it, you need to say it yourself, Hanyu. Ow, ow, ow. With that, I finally figured it out. Hanyu wanted to say something, but she didn't know how to say it, so she wanted Rika-chan to say it for her. But Rika-chan told her to say it herself. In other words, we need to listen to what Hanyu has to say. I will say this. I really don't have much circumstances in which I am sociable. Let's just say I was not very well liked in school, but I still had friends, particularly from Boy Scouts. I consider them as brothers, and I enjoyed hanging out with them. But in general, while I do tend to be a bit anxious, and well, perhaps prolonged isolation probably does not help with social skills, and perhaps a lot of times there are other emotional issues that are bothering me at times, I do feel that I am not bad. My ear itches. Hold on. I feel that I'm not bad at socializing, but in general, I think a lot of us have become less social as time gone on just because I work quite a bit, and a lot of times I just tend to stay alone to myself or do things by myself. But I would say in general that Usually when I would talk to people, I tend to do a lot more listening. But I would say one piece of advice I would give for a lot of people if you're talking to someone is usually if you're talking to somebody, whenever they say something, you shouldn't be in a rush to add something to what they have to say immediately unless there's something you really, really need to say at that moment. Like, obviously, you want to contribute to the conversation, talk as well, but a lot of times when someone's saying something, they may take small pauses, but they're not done talking. So usually I would say a good rule is sometimes if someone's having a conversation with you and they're saying something, unless you feel the need to add something immediately that is relevant and necessary to be interjected at that moment, I'd say a good rule of thumb is to usually wait probably like 20 seconds after someone says something, because there's a good chance they're not done talking and they'll have something more they wish to say. But it really just depends on what you yourself want to say and who it is you're talking to in the social setting. It's whatever it is, you adapt to the circumstance. We patiently waited for Hanyu to speak up, but when I think about what happened this morning, I realize this kind of silence makes her even more nervous. Retta, noticing that, talked to her in a sweet tone in a voice. What is it, Hanyu-chan? Can you tell me? I'll help you. Ow, ow. What is it? Can you say it one more time? Ow, 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 ow. Yeah? Retta raised her voice. What? Let this old man know too. It's like we're just hearing Hanyu mumble like meh, 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 meh. But what is it? Are you sure? What could it be? Please share with all of us. Well, I want to join your club. I want to join your club. Eh? Hanyu said it loudly as if to shake off her embarrassment. Ha! Ha 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 ha! Now that's a surprise. Where did you hear about us? Oh, I want to join. I want to join your club. Very good. You did a great job. Clap, clap, clap. I don't know if that's meant to be encouraging claps or slow claps. Rika-chan must have known that Hanyu wanted to join the club all along. Mion folded her arms with a smile and stared at Hanyu as if praising her. Needless to say, Hanyu was intimidated. Why am I thinking about instrumental versions of the Toxicity album of System of a Down? You're awfully reckless jumping into mortal peril by choice. But our club isn't just any old club. Only a select few are allowed to join, and that's only after passing a gruesome trial. Just because you want to join doesn't mean you can, you know. Look, Hanyu-chan. Mi-chan's club might look fun, but, you know, it's not that easy. I already know that. You have to win, otherwise you don't know what might happen. And are you sure you're aware of that? I won't lose. But besides, Hanyu swallowed once and said what was on her mind. It sounded like a big thing to say for her, as though it had a much deeper meaning. I used to hate to lose, so I always ran away from every game. But running away is even worse than losing. I can win only if I continue to fight. Despite the pain of failure, that's something I've learned. Hanyu? When Mion realized that,
Although she looks timid and Hanyu is actually very courageous, she grinned. She looks like she's grown fond of her. Well, well, she's got guts. How about it, Mion? Why don't we let her try, huh? Let her take the entrance exam? It usually takes more than a few weeks to determine if one is even qualified to take the exam. Yet she wants to take it on her first day? What should I do? Mion pretended to be stubborn, but in reality she was simply playing with her. If she actually didn't want her to join, she would have refused her right away. Of course, if Hanyu was bothered by this kind of intimidation, she wouldn't be able to survive in this club. Just like Rena and Satoko said, our club is relentless. Winning should be your utmost goal. Always aim for first place, and if you come in last, you will wish you were never born. Oh, I'll do my best. The punishment for losing is actually kind of fun too. Hanyu-chan, you've been watching this whole time, huh? You've been wanting to join for the longest time, huh? I got the feeling that Rena had just mumbled something like that. Come on, Mion, let her try. I got in by going through that too, you know. Quite true. Let us see what Hanyu-san is made of. Have fun, Hanyu-chan. I won't hold back, okay? I won't hold back either. I'll only give you my best, Hanyu. Oh. Very well. Hanyu Furude, you're on. You're allowed to take the entrance exam. Okay then. We'll have to choose a game that Hanyu knows how to play. What would be good? Oh, what about this? Mion threw a deck of cards onto the desk. Does this mean? We'll play a game that everyone knows. How about Old Maid? Oh, that's fine. Here she goes. This is exactly what I had to endure when I went through the entrance exam. This is the Marked Tile deck. Oh, that's a very enthusiastic response. However, our club's version of Old Maid is a little different, no? Most of the cards have scratches on the back, so by memorizing the scratches you can tell what card it is. In other words, the more you played this game, the better you are at it. This is simply our way of being mean to newcomers. Hanyu-chan, you can do it. This is a trial. How? You can do it, yeah. This sure brings back memories. I had to go through this too. It just happened recently, but I still feel so nostalgic. However, that doesn't mean I'll go easy on you. Just like how merciless they all were when I did the exam, I'll put everything I got into this. Right? I'll put everything I've got into this, right? Everyone? Prepare yourself, Hanyu-san. Here we go. If you want to join, let us see what you've got. Roger. I'll call your hand for the right, okay? Ace, 3, 4, 7, Jack, and Queen. It's too late to hide now. Oh. Sorry, Hanyu-chan, this is the Ace of Spades, right? I'm out. Muaha, do you get it, Hanyu? This is the entrance exam for our club. Meep. Keiichi is putting his leftover grudge from his own entrance exam into this game. Come on, Kei-chan, are you sure you should be saying things like that? Hanyu, take Kei-chan's card on the right. That's what you need to win. Ow. I'm done. What? That's not fair. Okay, I'm dead serious now. How dare you make me mad? Hanyu, do you want to go home on a leash, wearing shorts with a tail on them on your first day? My, I think you would look better in them, Keiichi-san. How? Yes. And I'm going to take him home with me. Actually, that sounds pretty nice, Rena. I'll make him do that punishment. That's a great idea. I'm in too. Hey, you guys, why are you picking on me? Huh? Fine then. I'm going to make all of you do it.
Okay, this is the banquet section. Can you hear me? One more speech and then we'll move on to the toast. Are you ready? This is the back end. We're ready. We can't hear anything from inside, so please give us a cue when the speech is finishing up. 10 bottles per table, okay? Make sure you serve the table smoothly. Young waiters with bow ties got bottles of beer ready for a toast. There are several dozen tables with white tablecloths on them in the banquet room. Approximately 8 people are sitting at each table, so there are at least a few hundred people there. The banquet room is teeming with excitement. There are many plates of different kinds of food on each table. A sushi platter, a sashimi platter, a fruit platter. Also along the wall there are cooks ready to serve fresh sashimi. All the guests appear to be well-mannered gentlemen. Obviously they are notable people from different fields. The huge, beautiful chandelier above them clearly tells the hotel holds a status good enough for those famous people. An elderly gentleman is giving a long speech on the stage when making a toast. Usually people don't like such long speeches, especially if it's before a toast. But the guests are actually excited with his speech. Maybe the word excited isn't suitable. Maybe it should be described as an upsurge in a strange way. Anyway, Japan accepted the demand for unconditional surrender, and the day they did, the Pacific War ended. In other words, even if they had to take care of further business, the war ended that day according to international law. And from that day on, there was peace. Therefore, if any troops invaded Japanese land during that peace, that would be an encroachment against Japan. No matter what the Soviet Union says, the northern territories are Japanese land, and it should be clear to everyone that they invaded illegally. Hear, hear. And now they want to settle by returning a mere 2 islands to us? Who do they think they are kidding? Listen. Habomai, Shikostan, Kunashir, and Iturup are Japanese territory. Their total area is equal to the entire prefecture. What would you think if the Soviets invaded and occupied one of our prefectures? Would you settle for just getting half of the prefecture back? No, you wouldn't. You'd have the entirety returned to you. Yet the Soviets are brazenly sitting there, claiming vested rights to the land. This is no joke. We must strongly oppose this to the bitter end. Return all the northern islands. Our nation must demonstrate unwavering resolve on that point. Thunderous applause filled the banquet room. All the gentlemen agreed and expressed that they felt the same way by cheering him on. In all that hubbub, there were 2 people standing by the wall who didn't seem to fit in with the rest. Hi, Kasuka. They were wearing sharp-looking suits, and while a little too old to be called young men, they were certainly young compared to all the elderly gentlemen in the banquet room. Why do politicians always tend to lean right or nationalist and be so partisan? That's simple. What politicians want most are votes, and votes are cast for their constituents. But not everyone over 20 actually votes. Voter turnout is highest among those who are retired and have free time, so the elderly interested in politics monopolize the votes, and that means the key to the election is whether or not they can secure the elderly vote. Okay, I know that this game takes place in 1983 at this point, and was written in like 2003. But right now, considering that the bulk of the population is people between the ages of 65 and 75, does that mean, air quotes, boomers have the most political authority in just about every country on the planet right now? The war only happened 40 years ago. In other words, the generation that's interested in voting is the generation from before the war. My mother talks about air raids often. She used to live near Matsuribayashi, and she lost all of her family in air raid. She had to walk across the burnt fields all alone. That's right, our parents went through the war. They shed their blood, sweat, and tears, believing it was for the good of the nation. We lost the war, but they believed the war still brought about change that serves as a foundation for the peace we have today. I hear that a lot, that if Japan hadn't fought the war, the Asian countries would still be Western colonies. There was no way we could have won, but we needed to fight in that war, or something like that. In that case, no matter how much they preach pacifism, politicians can't ignore the pre-war generation. War is bad, and we should never again fight a war. But that war was necessary. Unless they say things like that, it's like they're denying the very lives that generation lived. I see. Politicians have to work hard to earn votes, huh? However, it would be one thing if they were truly proclaiming their own beliefs, but many of them are simply saying that to get elected. As long as there are politicians trying to win over what remains of the pre-war generation,
This country's post-war era will never end. That's how the ghosts of the war will pass their will on to the next generation and keep things the same for the next millennium. They'll just keep repeating that the war was justified yet regrettable every time an election takes place. When will our country ever be freed from that cycle? It's simple. Young people need to vote. Don't be fooled by war stories that vote for those actually pushing policies. Realistic policies, that is. Yeah. There are a few who talk about some pretty unrealistic things. Kasuka-san, isn't that the F table? There she is. Let's go. The speech had ended and the elderly gentlemen were giving the man on the stage a standing ovation. The two men walked through the crowd and approached an old lady in a kimono. Yes, that would be me, but who are you? I made an appointment with you on the phone yesterday. I'm a Kasuka. Ooh, oh. Hick. My husband worked so hard for this country. Even so, madame, I understand what you're going through. This wasn't really anything out of the ordinary. Nobody could remember if there had been a donation or not, so a handful of politicians were questioned. As a result, some came up with a scheme to blame a sick, elderly man who had already retired, with only a short time to live anyway. He was the perfect fit for them. The elderly man had already been sick in bed, and the shock of his friends betraying him had taken away his will to live. The only thing his wife could do was to simply watch him suffer. She kept crying while telling the men about her husband's achievements. If your husband is in fact innocent, a judge will rule accordingly. Don't worry, all false accusations will be cleared. I already know that because he is innocent, but he won't live to see that verdict. He worked so hard for this country, and this is what he gets in return at the end? How can he rest in peace? Akasa nodded and tried to find the right words to say to her. His colleague rummaged through a pile of paperwork behind him. The papers were filled with fine print, and it would be hard for an onlooker to tell exactly what they were. However, the way he was looking at them made it very clear that they contained something important. Akasuka-san, this is amazing. This records exactly the amount of money was moved, how the money was moved. Akasuka gave him a signal to remind him that this wasn't the place to be looking through those documents. Madam, there isn't any more paperwork, is there? No, that was the only thing in the safe. Please, use it to get back at those ingracious bastards. My husband did so much for them, and yet they... Oh, madam, you do understand that some things in these documents will implicate him, don't you? Yes, I understand that. One can't be honest all the time when one is a politician. I am his wife, after all. Thank you for your cooperation. I will use this to expose the injustice that was done to him. Only one thing. May I ask you just one thing, though? Could you wait until my husband passes away before making this public? The paperwork Akasuka received was something her husband intended to take to the grave with him. Something that shouldn't exist in this world. If it went public, her husband's name would be disgraced. Akasuka nodded. I understand. You have my word. Vast public funds were moving from Kasumi Gaseki? The funds were issued to sub-branches to carry out national policies, but various ideas over those public funds always came together, and there was an end to those trying to poke a straw into it, out like a mosquito. I wonder if that's Koizume's wife. Well, no, I don't know if he even had a wife anymore at that point. I mean, he was definitely fucking his mistresses all the time, and attendants. So, I mean, Takano was like the one person he didn't fuck. But that's because he actually saw her as like a granddaughter. Still flirted and said perverted things, but I'm just saying there was a line drawn there. But I'm wondering, was Koizumi set up and attacked and set up to prematurely die? Old or not, he probably could have lived a little longer. What's the chance that he was poisoned? Perhaps in the same way that Rika's father. Excessive dividends, cordial patronage, profits of organizations that benefit themselves. Many financiers approached and adhered to officials and politicians hoping to earn those gains. And the bureaucrats constantly indulge them. That's how Japanese corruption works. These illegal pipes form bypass after bypass in Kasumigaseki, siphoning off public funds for their profit. To find and destroy such pipes is, of course, in the national interest. And that was another thing. They were saying a lot of the funds being used for the Erie Institute were largely the politicians themselves doing a large bit of embezzling. Or rather, that they were making a large fund going to the Erie Institute, but they were embezzling a bit off on the side. So it was an excuse to give themselves a kickback. And then later on, I think Takano used it as a way to frame Erie for it, because he was kind of a hindrance after everything was said and done. Tying up loose ends. But eliminating illegal expenditures isn't as simple as all that. There are important people connected to those pipes, and when those people are investigated, a major political scandal takes place. The reason why the government doesn't investigate such illegal expenditures is not only to protect vested interests, but also because they are conscious of the damage these scandals can cause politically. To put it more succinctly, I think is how that's pronounced, or delicately, the government can't endure the pain of pushing pus out of a wound. The closer the exposed subject is to the top, the greater the pain faced with the government, and that affects the cabinet approval rating. The closer the subject is to the core, the more extensive the damage to the heart. The secret investigation Akasaka was leading went as close to the heart as it got, and could cause a collapse of the administration from shock. Akasaka was tipped off that a huge amount of public funding was leaking out through an alumni organization of Tokyo, of the 7 imperial universities, also known as Tokyo, so he and his colleagues had been conducting a secret investigation into the matter for a long time. His target was tightly knit, but he learned that the wife of one of the organization's senior members bore strong resentment toward them after her husband was made their scapegoat, and he managed to contact her. And because of that, he had got his hands on extremely important information. Good work, everyone. We've almost gathered enough proof. What Akasaka-kun brought us is particularly shocking. You must have worked hard to get it. Great work. Thank you. The small meeting room was filled with boxes that were in turn filled with documents. A whiteboard was filled with cramped writing too. A few of the investors in the meeting room, which was also filled with smoke, were reading the documents intensely. Their intimidating manner clearly indicated that they were police officers with a great deal of experience. Akasaka was one of those men. It had been a while since Mamoru Akasaka was transferred to this department. When he worked on the case of the kidnapping of Mr. Inukai's grandson, he had been a rookie, but by now he was an experienced investigator. After knocking on the door, an elderly man entered the room. Everyone straightened up all at once. Sir, thank you for stopping by. Thank you. You don't need to stand, relax. I brought a wonderful gift for you all today. Kanao, you get to go to your son's Parents' Day meeting after all. The meeting room was filled with sighs, tinged with exasperation and resignation. It certainly wasn't because any of them hated going to Parents' Day. I knew it. I thought it was about time. Shit, Akasaka's colleague complained. They had been so close to getting to the root of this issue. They had such strong evidence. Akasaka on his part wasn't too disturbed. This had happened several times in the past, and considering how hot the documents he obtained were, it was easy enough to predict. The case was suddenly transferred to another department. That meant their investigation ended here. The new department was supposed to continue the investigation, to expose injustice, but that's never happened once before. It was just an excuse. The investigation had been terminated because of pressure from above. Damn it! What about everything we worked for so far? I was just to see how much of it hurt to push out the pus. They realized it would be too painful, so they decided not to treat the wound. In that case, their hard work wasn't wasted. Because of that, the investigation was terminated. Akasaka understood that, but his colleagues wasn't yet mature enough to understand. Of course, Akasaka's sense of justice was displeased by this. He felt frustrated with his superiors, who had hesitated to expose the truth. But he was mature enough to know not to say that out loud. We'll organize what we have and hand it over to the other end later. Anyway, since you haven't had a day off for a long time, you don't have to wait until 5 p.m. to leave today. Please go home and get some rest. We'll talk about what's left to do tomorrow. Also, don't forget to use up your vacation time too. Make sure you take a vacation and give a treat to your spouses. Chief, please come with me. That will be all. Yes, sir. Though his long, secret investigation left a bad taste in his mouth, with its resolution he managed to earn a holiday until the next incident arrived. Well, I guess we'll do as he says. Everyone go home and get some rest. If you go home that early, you might find out your wife is having an affair, you know. Dumbass, you don't know anything. Akaska and his wife are madly in love. He calls her every night from the public phone in a different building. I envy you, Akaska. My wife is pretty cold. Ta-ha-ha. Akaska smiled bitterly as he gathered the documents in his hands. One of the pages fell to the floor. It was a page from a huge pile of papers documenting illegal expenditures. They exposed the illegal expenditures of the Alphabet Project, the research team for the next generation of hardware in the Defense Agency. It was entirely possible that this project was created in the first place for the purpose of funneling these illegal expenditures. When he saw the paper, one thing caught Akaska's eye. He picked it up, looked at it, and tried to remember. It was a list of people who legally received public funds. It was also a list of retirees who were still very much in love with money. There should have been no connection between those people and Akaska. However, there was one thing that caught his attention. The Erie Institute. The Erie Clinic. As soon as he said it, all sorts of memories resurfaced. Yes, the Erie Clinic. When he was working on the case of Minister Unakai's grandson abduction, he got into a scuffle with the suspects and became injured. He was taken to the local clinic. As he recalled, the name of the clinic was the Erie Clinic. He started to remember one thing after another. His very first experience with wading into the muck. It was burnt into his mind like a fresh memory, and he could vividly recall everything that happened. His daughter was about to be born, and he really didn't want to go to Hinamizawa. He met Oishi, who taught him a lot of important things. He also met a girl in that village. Her name was, yes, Rika Furude. That was it. How long had it been? How old was she now? As he remembered her lovely smile, he also remembered the ominous prediction she made. She had predicted that if he didn't go back to Tokyo, something terrible would happen. At the time, he took it as nonsense, but he felt something odd about it, as if it was divine omen. Then he had remembered Yuki, who was about to give birth. He became concerned that something terrible would happen to her, but he couldn't just leave and go back to Tokyo. But that's why he called her right away. He told her something would happen. He told her to be very careful until he returned. Yuki had laughed and told him he was being paranoid, but the phone call indeed saved her from a calamity. Akaska had found out about that when he visited her after returning to Tokyo. A few days after his phone call, a janitor was seriously injured when he stepped on a loose towel on the stairs on his way to the rooftop. He also heard afterwards that Yuki had a habit of going up to the roof for a walk every day, but because of his phone call, she had stopped doing it. If he hadn't called her, she would have been the one to step on the loose tile. In other words, Rika Furude's prediction had been correct. There was no proof, but Akaska still believed that he was able to save Yuki only because of Rika Furude's prediction. He'd intended to call and thank her for saving Yuki, but the busy days that followed put it out of his mind. Rika-chan. He wondered if she was still doing well, if she was still smiling. Akaska remembered the sad prediction she made on the night under the moon, while still wearing that smile. That's right, she'd said something. She predicted someone would get killed on the night of the festival every year, and that on the 5th year, she'd be the one to be killed. That's right, he thought, she did say that. The 5th year, that's this year. The festival is... That's right, it's in June, if he remembered correctly. It happens on the last Sunday of the month. Akaska looked at the calendar. It was June 1983. Although there was still some time, the death she predicted for herself was coming up. The girl who'd predicted Yuki's death, accident, also prophesized a mysterious incident would occur annually for the next 5 years. If they'd actually been happening, then it would happen again this year. Akaska wondered if Oishi was still at the Okonomiya PD. If the annual incident she predicted actually was taking place, he would know. In other words, he could confirm if Rikafuruta was going to be killed or not with a phone call to Oishi. The girl who predicted her own death had muttered that she didn't want to die. Muttered? No, it was clearly a plea for help. A young girl who was trapped in the fathomless, bizarre traditions of a village she couldn't escape had sought help from him, an outsider. She paid his reward in advance, in the form of foreseeing Yuki's accident. He had to get to her. He had to go save her. A flood of emotions filled him up. He felt as though he had finally remembered something he was never supposed to forget. That's right, he had to go to Hinamizawa. He had to save the girl who asked him for help. Hello, Okonomiya PD. Hello, this is Kurado Oishi, still working? Is a Kurado Oishi still working in your investigation department? If he is, may I talk with him, please? Excuse me, may I ask who's calling? Could you tell him it's Akaska from the police headquarters? Oishi was a very lively person, but he had been old even back then. Maybe he had already transferred somewhere else, or maybe he'd since retired. But if he was still there, he'd be happy to hear from Akaska. He sure had a unique laugh. Oishi-san! There's a phone call for you. Someone from the police headquarters in Tokyo. Tokyo? Who could that be? Hello, this is Oishi. What? My, oh my! Oh, and how have you been? Higurashi when they cry, Kai, Matsuribayashi. By the way, the various animes are pretty cool too. The First Miracles. Welcome, a new student. Well, we'll call that a video for now, guys. As I hiccup. Later.